Welcome to Kiss the Reviews. I'm Armando, that's Corey, and today we're doing 2023's Totally Killer. Before we get started, a couple of things. If you want to follow the show on the social medias, you can follow us on Instagram, X or Twitter, TikTok. TikTok while it's still around, because apparently they're in front of Congress right
Double
now.
T. Senator, I am Singaporean.
But you can follow us on all of those platforms at Kiss the Reviews. And let's get into the cast of 2023's Totally Killer. This film stars Kiernan Shipka as Jamie Hughes, Olivia Holt as Pam Miller, Charlie Gillespie as teenage Blake Hughes, Lochlyn Munro as adult Blake Hughes, and Julie Bowen as Pam Hughes. Before we comment on the cast and before we get into the movie, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Sybil. This was a PayPal request. She just requested that we give her a little shout out. So here's your shout out.
Hi, Sybil.
Hey, girl.
Your Uncle Corey loves you in the naughty ways.
Knew that was coming.
But anyway, to the cast. Kiernan Shipka, I watched Mad Men from the beginning, like so many people, obviously. It's not like I discovered her on Mad Men, this show nobody's heard of. But she is one of those child actors that has just turned into a really, really talented individual.
There's a lot of subtlety to what she does, and I'm here for all of that.
Yep. She's awesome.
And for a horror, I don't know why I'm using air quotes, it's technically a horror film, that has some comedy to it. Somebody like her skill set fit so perfectly into what this movie is. And I loved it. I loved it the whole way through.
Yeah, and it speaks a lot to her. I mean, we'll get done fucking tongue kissing her here in a second, but it says a lot about her because she has to carry so much of this movie as the straight person and really just kind of the of it all around the craziness of the 80s. And she, again, like Armando said, she does it so well that she is doing all of the heavy lifting in this movie.
Absolutely. And before we get into the opening, quick shout out to Julie Bowen. She is fantastic. I love her in everything she's in. She's a great comedic actress. She's a great serious she's great across the board. There's only one scene in her whole career that I don't like. Yeah, it's just one scene. Just one scene. Everything else is just chef's kiss. It's great. But let's get into this movie. So the movie opens in a small town of Vernon. They're going over October 27th through the 31st, 1987. 3 16-year-old girls were killed by the Sweet 16 killer, and each having been stabbed 16 times on the night of their 16th birthdays. And it cuts into present day where we see Jamie Hughes. She's getting ready to go to a concert with her best friend, Amelia. It's Halloween night. And her mom, Pam, tries to convince Jamie to stay home because she doesn't want anything bad to happen to her. And just an FYI here, judging by not only Jamie's reaction to like getting attacked in later scenes and yada yada, she's had enough self-defense classes. She's got everything but an AR-15 hanging from her keychain. Like, I get you're concerned. There was a string of murders back in the day. Fine. She's armed with enough shit. She's good.
Yeah, she's fine. She's one of those girls when she goes out, it's like, you'll be all right.
Oh, absolutely.
And she's going out with friends, and it's a group of them, and
yeah,
it seems okay to me. And I mean, plus they're going to see this Eddie Royal in concert, and based on his side activities and what we see of him in the 80s later, this guy's a pussy. She's going to be fine at that concert. That's soft rock.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning, apparently he's like metal, and then by the end, he's like an emo guy. But
sure.
whatever.
If I do this, that means I'm tough.
You were correct.
You don't see MGK every fucking poster. Come on, guy.
Look at me, I'm wearing pink, but I flip the birds, bro. Fuck off.
Jamie here is like, cool story, mom. Deuces, I'm out. So her dad takes her to the concert, and while Pam hands out Halloween candy, she gets attacked by the Sweet 16 killer in the Johnny Bravo mask or whatever, and she's killed. And I'll say this. Like Julie Bowen here, okay, stunt doubles, whatever. But her character here, she can handle herself too. And it wasn't these, like in these movies where the women get attacked and they survive by just like flailing and whatever. Like she's got like the cross arm defense moves, and it's all like, I hate to say like proper defense technique, but it's like she's trained for this.
Yeah, I mean, for a suburban housewife,
great.
she's doing John Wick like shit.
Yeah, she is. My favorite part is my favorite part is when he first comes in and she's like, I've been waiting for this shit. She hits the bottom of the shelf and takes out a fucking 9 milli. That is the coolest part. And that's when I went, I love Julie Bowen even more. Just that scene, I was like, yeah, love it.
I really liked it up until that part, for the simple fact that whoever wrote this movie has been inside my home. And I don't like that. You're telling on me, dickhead. Stop doing that shit. You know I got stuff hidden all over this place. I got claymores lying in my fucking front yard.
When you go over to Corey's house for a barbecue, he's like, step here, step. He puts footprints on the floor on where to step.
Yes, sir.
Afterwards,
and I will say this one last thing about this Julie Bowen scene. Her death scene was way more gruesome than I was expecting a death scene to be in this movie. And all of the death scenes are like this. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of Scream.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, because you're ha ha ha, and it's funny, and it's kind of jokey, and you think it's going to cut away from any kind of stabbing or real bloodshed, and it doesn't. And not only does it not cut away, you can hear the knife going into something. They're brutal scenes. And her scene was great. It was rough watching her die in that scene.
Oh, 100%. And it's a great scene. The whole from front to back, it's great. But afterwards, Jamie helps Amelia with her like time machine science project, which was Amelia's mom's original plan, because she was like a nerd too when she was in high school, but apparently she gave up on all that. And Jamie then gets attacked by the Sweet 16 killer, runs into the time machine, and it finally works. It sends her back to October 27th, 1987, the day of the first murder. So she's back in 1987, and she's like, cool, I guess I'll just decide to try to save my mom and stop these murders and catch the killer.
And this is one of my favorite things about this movie is once she goes back to 1987, her first thing to everybody is, have you seen Back to the Future? Yeah. Which is literally what everybody would do if they went back to the 80s and knew Back to the Future had already been out. That is literally the easiest, fastest, most concise way to possibly convey to somebody that you are time traveling is, have you seen Back to the Future? Brilliant.
Well, that, and this is what I meant earlier by like the subtleties of her acting. Because she goes into like the high school and she was like, oh, I'm a foreign exchange student from Canada. And they're just like, yeah, here's your schedule. And she was just like that.
Okay, you don't need to verify anything.
What is this, Fort Knox?
Like these very subtle little digs at the 80s, like that nobody gave two shits back then. Like you could just walk into a school and all of a sudden you have a schedule and you're a student all of a sudden.
Yep, that easy. You're a student, you can get information, everybody's smoking. Yes. I mean, this is what makes this movie so good, is that attention to detail of what the 80s were.
Yeah.
And there's a couple things you hear a character say here or there that really I was like, I don't think they said that in the 80s. Like, that's
Yeah.
more today. But nonetheless, I mean, they nail the 80s so
No,
well.
when
And
she first,
in the way they do such a good job of not being so assholic about calling the 80s out
yeah.
is just perfect.
No, it was perfect. It wasn't over the top. It was very subtle, and I loved it. And even when she first gets to 1987 and she gets the ride from the lady in the tracksuit,
Mm-hmm.
and she pulls up to the high school,
Yep.
and it's just all smoky, and she opens the door and the smoke just billows out of the door. Again, back in the 80s, a lot of smokers just smoked with the windows rolled up, which disgusts me to no end when I see shit like
Oh,
that, because
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that was a thing. And I didn't understand why people did that. It's not like cigarettes didn't stink back then.
No, that's why asthma exists.
You were right.
She decides to try and help her mother here. And she tries to become friends with her mom and her friends. And she realizes that her mom was one of the original Mean Girls at high school. And so all the friends, the 3 friends that died, they were all part of the Mean Girls clique. And this is where she also goes and finds Amelia's mom to get her to help fix the time machine so she can get back home. You always there has to be one person, Back to the Future, whatever type movies when you're time traveling, that has to believe you. And the most believable character here is Amelia's mom, because she was the one that was working on the time machine and yada yada. I like how it was just very believable. It flowed really well.
Yeah. And I think one of the best scenes in this movie, period, is the introduction of Jamie's younger mother while they're playing dodgeball. Because first off, the entire gym experience here is hilarious.
Yes.
From what they have to wear as gym clothes into, this modern day Jamie thinking like, I'm not going to have gym today. Thank you. I'll just sit it out. And the coach just ridiculing her to no end. The viciousness of the dodgeball, and then
yes,
her younger mom just being like, I hit you, you're fucking out, and just keep pegging her in the face with this dodgeball until her nose bleeds. And then the gym coach ridiculing her again for bleeding.
Yes.
Just
the whole scene is perfect.
Maybe you should fuck off and die.
So the following scenes here are basically her trying to get in with the Mean Girls, which she does a horrible job of, but she finally does after the first murder and convinces her mom that she's a psychic and can predict the future. She doesn't want to go to the whole like time travel thing. So the more believable thing is I'm a psychic and I can predict the future.
And she hands her mom the crystal that her mom had given her in the future. And her mom literally looks at this crystal and goes, seems legit, and hands it back. Dude, the parts where there's not a killer involved are hilarious. And the parts where there are a killer are brutal.
Yep.
It reminded me a lot of like It's a Wonderful Knife, or one of these movies that we've reviewed recently that is just so perfectly done, interlaying the horror with the comedy.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm envious.
No,
I wish I could write something like that. It's so good.
It's fantastic. And so after the first murder, because she gets the location wrong because she's already changed anything. So it's already started to send, ripples out into the universe or whatever. So we get the cabin scene, which is the second murder. And Heather gets murdered here instead of Marissa. And my favorite part, again, because the 80s, is when she's like, oh, well, my parents have this condo and we'll go. And she's like, yes, we'll go to the city in a condo. And they get to this cabin. She's like, what the fuck is this? She's like, this is a goddamn cabin in the middle of nowhere. She's like, oh, this isn't a condo?
This is not a condo.
It's not? Oh, maybe I was thinking of a timeshare.
Heather and Marissa here are legitimately my 2 favorite characters in this movie. They are so good at playing these ditzy, dumb, and it's the 80s, so I can say it, slutty girls that just like Tiffany included in this with the whole joke about like, I love BJs. Oh, blowjobs? No, I fucking hate blowjobs. Like, and then like the girl randomly, Marissa being the girl that randomly goes into the freak show or the horror show at the fair and gives random BJs to people. Just the casual sex of like teenage 80s.
Yep.
God damn, those were the days.
Hell yes.
And I love it here because, I mean, let's face facts. I mean, we were kids in the 80s. Like, I was young here. But
she was fucking.
But I was fucking. but not really. But even in through the 90s, obviously there's some things that we would say, like just the vernacular back then was obviously different. With every generation, it gets different. Yeah. But the funniest part, and there are these little subtle digs where like the guys will say, and even the girls will say stuff, and Jamie here will just be like,
gross. Not your comment was gross. Not gay people. Gay people are amazing. Your comment was homophobic undertones.
But again, you take somebody from 2023, 2024, and then you just put them back, just plop them in 85, and they'd be like, dude, literally what the fuck is going on here?
Yes. And I like that again, the subtlety in it, because we always talk about messages and beating us over the head with the message. And it doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist to know that 2024 is very different than 1987. Very, very different.
Yeah.
So having her with these subtle, like unwanted touching, and everybody just looking at her confused, but her not going that extra step. Yeah. And like, now I'm going to lecture you and virtue signaling to fucking everybody she possibly can about how fucking woke she is.
Yep.
It's so great how they were able to kind of contain that, because this could have went off the rail. It could have been like the Texas Chainsaw that Netflix put out recently.
Yep.
Where it goes so overboard in that, where it's just like, fuck, like I want you guys to die and I'm on your side.
Well, this goes back to the old adage and what we've said. Just don't make your characters unlikably annoying. Like the characters that you're supposed to like, don't make them unlikably annoying. They can be annoying, but just not unlikable. Like, and you ride this line where she's likable, she's not annoying, her bits are funny. Like those bits, whether they're written or improvised or whatever the hell, they're all funny. And then again, it lends itself to everything else that's happening. It's almost like this Tucker and Dale kind of scenario where you got these really funny pieces, and then you get into the cabin, and now you have the killer chasing people around, just kicking the shit out of everybody, stabbing fucking everybody. Like you said before, the murder scenes are brutal, and these little fight scenes are brutal. And then you cut to the next scene, and it's like when they go back to the amusement park after this, because they're like, we're gonna capture the killer, and she's like, here's the little rape thing, and you just hit this button, and she hits it, and
dude, I pissed my pants laughing so hard when she fucking gets her throat slit and then presses the button as she's dying. I literally had to stop the movie because I was laughing so hard. And those are more of the subtleties Armando's talking about. Like, it doesn't always have to be this big, bombastic, look at me, this is the joke. Yeah. It's just subtle. If you're paying attention, you're going to catch it. And if you aren't, it's just another noise in the movie. You already forgot what that thing was. Yep. It's not necessary, but fucking brilliant.
You were correct.
So you get some of these, very comedic moments, but they go to this amusement park, like I said, and they plan to capture Johnny Bravo. And it also shows, while this is going on, Amelia's mom working on one of the rides to turn that into a time machine for Jamie so she can get back home before her phone dies. And in present day, Chris Dubasage, this local podcaster, helps Amelia fix the time machine in present day, as they realize that the timeline is starting to change. They see Jamie in one of the pictures that he took when he was in high school at one of the parties. And the way they set up this like Chris character was also really good too. Because he was the geek. His dad was like the local, newscaster and won a Pulitzer and yada, yada. And he's just trying, he's in his, 50, maybe in his 50s. And he's still trying to be his dad, but all he has is like this podcast.
Yeah.
But my favorite line is, I think it was at the beginning when he's meeting and talking to Jamie after her mom gets killed. And he gives her the note, like, oh, I saw this in her locker, yada, yada. And she was just like, she said something about his dad. And he was like, I have a podcast and we won 3 potties or whatever the hell he says.
It's not the same.
My podcast has won 5 Podsy Awards.
It's not the same thing.
Again, subtle punctuation to that joke. It's not the same. But yeah, so we get him here now trying to help. And the group finally lures the Sweet 16 killer into like the haunted house where he attacks them and he's killed by Kara, the town sheriff in 2023. And her dad was the sheriff back in 87. And
who is another fantastic character.
She is a great character.
God.
Yeah.
She is so funny. And her and Randall Park being the sheriff and them playing off each other. I didn't do it, Daddy. I know you didn't, sweetheart. And she just, fuck you, Blake, and runs the fuck out.
Daddy, I didn't do anything.
I know Kara.
Fuck you.
That's a great scene.
Dude, I'm telling you, this is one of the best horror comedies I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Period.
No, this one
is so good.
Yeah, this one is really good. But when they finally unmask the killer, and it's Doug, the principal from present day at the high school. And he was trying to get revenge because the group of girls got his girlfriend back in high school drunk, and she drove wrapped her car around a tree. His girlfriend, Fat Trish.
Fat Trish!
But then they realize that that's why Doug is there. And then you get the second killer in the Johnny Bravo mask who jumps out.
This is what impresses me too, because ever since I started writing, I pay attention more to the writing in movies and other books and things like that. And what is so impressive here about the writing is every comment made, subtle or not, gets tied back up at the end.
Yep.
Like the principal, he kept saying he took 8 years of karate. Right? Well, that's why the killer's kicking the shit out of everyone. Because he's doing like, professional kicks and shit. Better than fucking No Retreat, No Surrender. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that.
Hell yes.
And like her being the other girl being the sheriff and later in life, in the future. And she says, like, oh, you've never liked my dad. You've never liked my dad, and I don't know why. Well, we later find out she doesn't like Blake because Blake accused her of being the killer in the police station.
Yep.
And she's held that fucking grudge the entire time. So all of these little things that you think are just kind of these one-off comments or maybe just made to be funny, no, they're plot devices. They absolutely come back. Which makes this even more rewatchable. It's like it's like a good hip hop song. Like you're not catching all the bars the first time.
Yeah.
So you want to go back and hear it again and again and again. And you always pick up something new or a different double entendre or triple in there. That's what this movie is. That's the writing in this movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we get the second killer here that comes out of nowhere. He's got the Johnny Bravo mask on. He slits Marissa's throat and then chases after Jamie, and he kills Chris's father, the journalist, along the way because he's reporting on it. And he's just like running by and he's just like, ah!
It's just so good.
It's so great. Good. It is great. And they finally get to face off. in like this new time machine as Jamie turns it on, and then the killer is revealed, and it's Chris Dubasage from 2023, and he basically he reprised the character in 2023 so he can keep his podcast going. Which, again, we talk about motives in these movies, and we really like the no motive, where it's just like, this bitch crazy. Like, those are great motives. If you're gonna have a motive for a movie that comes out in 2023, this is the motive to have. I needed more content for my podcast. It's the greatest motive ever.
And I hate to quit harping on the writing, or not harping, but
yeah, in a good
basically
way.
making out with the writing in this. But again, what's your 1987 horror movie based on? Why is the killer doing something? A lot of the time it's revenge of some sort. Jason wants revenge. Freddy wants revenge. Michael Myers, we don't really know. He's just kind of batshit. But most of your 80s killers are all out for revenge. Perfect motive for the 80 killer.
Yeah.
2023? Wait, I need more content so I can be famous. I'm a week away from killing Armando, but now I can't because this movie shit all over my plan.
That's why we don't do the show together. I don't need a live broadcast of me getting murdered by Corey.
Bro, your death will net me at least 500 views.
At least, and that's all we're looking for.
I can make 22 cents off the ad runs in your memoriam show. Be amazing.
You could make tens of dollars off of that broadcast. It would be fantastic.
Take that, Owen Hart Foundation.
Jamie finally kicks Chris here as the machine spins, just turning him to like pink mist, which is also awesome. Fantastic. It's fantastic. And when she gets back to 2023, she finds that her mom is still alive, that her mom and dad, instead of hooking up like after college, they hooked up while they were still in high school and had her brother, who's 34 years old. And she's like 16 at the time or whatever. And the movie basically ends as her and Amelia's mom sit, and she basically wrote down all the changes that have happened over the years so she can get caught up.
And I love that she was going to meet her, but she fucked up daylight savings time. She kept fucking it up through the years. So she couldn't get the timing right on when she was actually supposed to be here. Fucking brilliant again.
No,
Such
that's
a good little joke.
Yeah.
And I love that they changed her name to Collette because Jamie is now her brother's name.
Yep. No, dude, this movie it's fantastic front to back. Again, I loved all the little subtle digs, and just like these offhanded little comments. And like you said, it's very rewatchable. And I want to rewatch it again because I know I missed a lot this first viewing. So I want to go back and see what I missed because there was so much to take in all of like the 80s, like all the present day scenes, fine. But just in those 80s scenes, there's just so much going on that there's little shit in the background that happens. Like I want to go back and see what I missed there.
Look, if I ever have to start slumming it and date a woman my own age again, this is probably one of the movies I'll suggest we watch.
You can bond over that.
That's right. Anybody younger, I'd be like, no.
That's what Corey does in the movie theater. He's like, see, that's how it was when I was growing up.
No, it's not. I finger blast in a movie theater, bro.
It's gross.
It's so gross.
It's so gross, and I've never done that. Okay,
I think you're lying. I think you're
lying. One time.
One time on a roller coaster. I thought I was I thought I was Mocky Mock.
It was one time, but he was a total slut, so it doesn't matter.
Oh my God. But yeah, dude, I love this movie. All the acting was great. The visuals were good. the way, and again, when you do these like Back to the Future type movies, any time travel, you have to get the vibe right in order for it to translate, obviously. And they just nailed it.
Yeah, the one point of caution I would give anybody setting out to watch this movie is the beginning of this, not a lot of comedy.
No. It's
Like
a
rolling
normal,
into it seems very serious, like Julie Bowen's death and the aftermath of that and the effects it's having on teenage daughter Jamie. Like it's all heavy, and her going to school, it's all a lot. And then they introduced the time travel, and if you're anything like me, you went, fuck me.
I kind of did the same thing. I kind of did the same thing.
But then she hit the 80s, and the whole tone of the movie changes. As it should, because now she is a complete fish out of water. Just by definition, it's comical. But it all plays out so well that I think this does a lot. I'm going to watch it again before I make any kind of declarative statement. But all of these movies I like, I'm putting this at the top of my list. And that would be like Final Girls, Happy Death Day. A lot of these other movies that deal with time travel and going back in time to stop the crime, and or living the same day and reliving the past, whatever the fuck. However you want to chop it up. This is one of the best of those movies. Period.
Yes. Yes. I will 100% agree with that. But that's all I got, man. You got anything else for this one?
No, go watch this movie. And again, like a huge thank you to Sybil, because I don't know when I would have seen this movie if it wasn't for you. So
this,
thank you. Here, blessed the emoji. You did a good job.
I will double that, because if we did not get this PayPal request, it wasn't even close to being on my radar. I know I would have eventually gotten to it, but it really wasn't on my radar at all.
No.
And so thank you again for the PayPal request. So this was a great movie. This is definitely in my I could rewatch this quite a few times. So
take notes, Damien.
On that note, for Corey, I'm Armando. This is Kiss the Reviews, and this was 2023's Totally Killer.